This story happened when I was 18, around 2020. I'm 22 now. I live in San Antonio, Texas. It was my senior year of high school. But this was when COVID just started blowing up, so everything began to shut down, including my school. Even though everyone was supposed to be staying home and being in quarantine, my friend group and I were going out more than ever. There wasn't much to do since all the non-essential businesses were closed. But one thing about me is I love urban exploring or exploring haunted places, regardless of any tales, myths, or legends. I'm not one to scare easily. I've had a couple experiences with the homeless, cults, and even had a gun pointed at me, but nothing compared to how odd and creepy this one instance I came across while exploring. I had started talking to a girl who I had a class with in high school. Her name was Michaela. If it weren't for her matching my alibi of what happened this night, I'm certain none of my friends would have believed us. We were still kind of freshly dating, but I somehow convinced her to explore a wooded natural park at 3 a.m. here in San Antonio. Great move, right? The park is called OP Schnabel. It's relatively nice, safe, and very scenic during the day, but at night it can be a dangerous place, and police usually roam the entrances to the area at night, keeping people away. In 2016, a 24-year-old woman named Lauren Bump was brutally murdered and stabbed over 15 times. And in 2019, a boy exploring the woods was fatally shot while exploring just like us. Michaela and I get to the park around 3 a.m. It's super creepy, pitch black, dark. Almost to the point you can't see your hand in front of your face. Plus, the trees did a really good job at covering up the moonlight. I don't like to have my flashlight on because then my eyes can't adjust to the darkness, and you can really only see what's lit up from the light. Plus, I wouldn't want someone to see my light from a far distance, so I like to keep them off while exploring unless it's needed. We started walking and quietly joked and poked at each other to make us feel a little more comfortable. Before I knew it, we were probably about 15 to 20 minutes in walking the main trail. I didn't plan to be in there for too long because it was kind of creepy and oddly quiet that night. I knew a trail that goes off the road that leads back to where my truck was parked, just in case we had to make a run for it. I told her we could take that trail, essentially making a full circle instead of walking all the way back around. She agreed, and so we began walking through that off-road trail. We were probably only about 2 minutes into the off-road trail when suddenly, out of nowhere, a flute began playing. Michaela and I stopped dead in our tracks and looked at each other, just listening. Whoever was playing it, it was super in cadence and sounded like it was playing some sort of piece of music. However, there was no time for me to process that it may have sounded good. It was creepy as hell. As I said before, I don't scare easily, but 15 seconds into the flute solo, Michaela began trembling in fear and on the brink of crying. I was kind of just listening, but when Michaela started praying to God to save her and forgive her for her sins, that's when I realized the severity of the situation. To be clear, it was super hard to pinpoint where the sound of the flute was coming from. It sounded like it was coming from the direction of the previous main trail, which was parallel to where we were, with about maybe 30 to 50 yards of woods in between. But it was getting louder and closer to the point where it sounded like the sound was right on top of us. Michaela couldn't even focus because she was so scared, so I knew I had to man up and get us out of this situation. This is going to sound corny, but I told her, "Don't worry, I'm not going to let anything happen to you," and told her that we should run down the off-road trail towards my truck. She stopped trembling for a second and nodded. We took off sprinting. I believe the flute stopped playing, but it was hard to notice because I was more focused on getting the hell out of there. We only got about 30 yards when, out of nowhere, we heard the rustling of bushes and the snapping of leaves and twigs. Suddenly, something big dashed across the trail right in front of us. Now, this could have very well been a deer or some sort of bigger wildlife. But it was so strange because I could almost feel the size of whatever was in front of us. I don't know if it was from the wind or what. The only thing is, I never saw a silhouette or a shape of anything in front of us. just the rumbling of the ground as it crossed our path. Another strange thing is I didn't hear it coming and I didn't hear it run away. I only heard the dash, right when it was right in front of us. As soon as we felt and heard whatever dashed across the trail, we obviously turned back around and bolted in the other direction until we got back to the original point where we heard the flute. And then, as if whoever was playing it was waiting for us to return, the flute started to play again, loud and right on top of us. This time it was almost chiming. It sounded like it belonged to some sort of Irish jig song or something, but the chiming was still in cadence. However, it was still impossible to pinpoint where the sound was coming from. It was just surrounding us. At this point, my fight or flight instincts kicked in because we were trapped. We had two options. Either go back into the off-road trail where we heard that terrifying dash right in front of us, or go back to the main trail where the flute and whatever psychopath was playing it was at. The off-road trail was definitely scarier because it was darker and surrounded by more dense forest, and at least the main trail was a cement path. Thus I told Michaela, who was still trembling in fear, "Let's start running down the main trail back to the truck." We ran back. Adrenaline was still pumping, so we cut the 20-minute walk into a 4 to 5 minute run, and somewhere along the run, the flute noise must have stopped. When we got back to my truck, it was still the only vehicle in the area near the main entrance to the woods. So what psychopath walks into the woods in the middle of the night and plays a flute? We made it to the truck, and I sped far away from there as fast as my little S10 could go. The next day, I told all my friends about it, and I looked all over the internet to see if anyone's ever come across anything like this. People claim to run into ghosts, cults, and animals making terrifying noises, but a soft and rhythmic flute solo? I couldn't find anything on that. Or maybe I just didn't look hard enough. I tried to figure out all the possibilities. There are some houses that eventually led into a neighborhood on the far edge of the woods, but those houses are at least a couple miles away, and we were fairly deep into the woods, so there's no way the sound could have traveled that far. Because I'm telling you, the flute was clear as day. Obviously, I never found out who was playing that flute or what dashed right in front of us. I actually kind of got chills writing the story. The more I think about it, it actually seems more paranormal rather than something scary on a tangible level. I don't know if it was a person, ghost, cult, or what. I'm really hoping someone might have a rational explanation. Either way, I never really went back to those woods at night. I still explore plenty of creepy places, but never really came across anything like that ever again.